And welcome back to the Tavern, friends. I am your host, the Game Master here at Tabletop Misfits. My name is James. Tonight we have a wonderful guest. If you've ever played or watched anything on, or listened rather, anything on Podbean, this guy has some really cool content. They just hit their 61st episode, it looked like, this week. And they hit a big numbers, right? 100K.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's impressive. I'm telling you, that's where we're hoping to get here in the next 5 years. so,
You'll
um,
get there. You'll get there.
yeah, but no, it's a wonderful to have you on the show. Um, in the tavern, we try to make everything extremely relaxed. So definitely sit back, relax. Our friends here on chat will be able to ask questions, and those questions will go to either myself or you, and we'll just have some fun. But one thing we started last week, or well, 2 weeks ago, is that we talk about a monster. So our monster of the week is the troll.
Hmm.
The troll is unique because the troll has those regeneration abilities, and I always tell my players to not always think that the troll is going to do the exact same thing he does in every other scenario. So if you had a troll and you were putting it up against your players, what would you change about a troll to make it either more exciting or to shift up the variability of it so that players that have maybe played more than a couple years are still going to get that feeling of excitement and change?
Yeah. I love this. Like, I love it as a classic monster. So I might leave it as is, but for me, the inspiration is from the movie Legend. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's an
Mm-mm.
old Tom Cruise movie. If you haven't seen it, and if people watching haven't seen Legend, it's a huge treat. It is so good, and it's one of the really only like pure classic fantasies. Anyway, there's a troll in that, and when I think about a troll, I always just imagine this character from Legend, Meg Mucklebones. What a name!
Oh
And
yeah,
she cackles like a witch. And she's got that classic look, green, warty skin, like
right.
black wiry hair with a long nose, and it's just chef's kiss perfection for me. And so that's what I'm channeling whenever I'm thinking about that kind of encounter.
Okay, yeah, no, that's those are unique. Those are very distinct features of a troll that kind of gets you thinking like that's what you're up against. And it's weird because if you actually look, and I think one thing I'm going to start doing is trying to get pictures from like first edition trolls, second edition trolls, because
Yeah,
they have changed dramatically between the years. Um,
definitely, definitely. And
one,
then there's like the Lord of the Rings troll, which again
yeah,
is that's an interpretation. It's never been the way I've imagined it, but it worked. It worked well.
yeah, no, the mountain troll, great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of one of the things I like to do is I'll shift it up on maybe what is the vulnerability or what is its immunities. Because I think if you show a troll that's not green and isn't sitting in a swamp, well, he's going to be different. He's not going to be the same type. Uh, and then I also make sure that my players do realize that just because you as a player know what a troll can do, you have to
Mhm.
explain to me how your character can know this because
That's
most people don't understand that if you throw I mean most players understand that if you throw fire at it it'll stop regenerating, but does your character understand that? Has your character ever seen a troll? Does it
yeah,
understand what's happening?
yeah. Players can't
So
help it. They have to
yeah,
use that. They have to use that meta. They can't be blamed.
what do you guys think? Our viewers tonight, what do you guys think about the troll? If you want to just give me a shout out in there, anything interesting you've seen about a troll or ways you've seen trolls changed. um,
Is there any way for me to see this chat as it's happening?
Yeah, so if you go to our Twitch channel, you can see
Yep.
that.
I'm on
Uh,
it now, but I don't see our video playing. Let me just refresh it. Maybe that'll
oh,
do.
that's that's not good. Can you guys see? I see people talking, so I'm sure I think we're live. So maybe we're not on the. See if it's happening. If you're just on our channel, you might have to click that little button at the top. It'll probably see us on like a big screen, and there'll
Yeah.
only be a little piece of us. So if you just double click that, it should make it bigger, and you should be able to see us. Let me see. Are you in the chat room? Let's find out. Oh wow, we got a ton of people in the chat room lurking. It's
Yeah.
great.
Good. Good. Well, you can always just relay it to me. I'm not going to torpedo your stream with my
No,
tech
no,
friend.
no. It's fine. No, no, you're fine. Welcome, friends. It looks like we've got a good amount of people sitting in. I don't know where we're sitting from, but welcome to the tavern. Uh, I think one of my goals this year is um, if we can get to 50 subs, which would be absolutely incredible. We would love, and we're seeing viewership growing.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I want to do is a community question of anybody who's a subscriber. The question will be asked, what should we call the tavern? Because we're Tavern Talks, but there is a name. There's got to be a name for the tavern. So I think we'll do a community run with that. If we hit those goals this year, we'll send those things out.
Dude, you should have like a contest where somebody names the tavern, and whoever names it, you name a drink after them.
Oh yeah, it's not a bad idea either. Look at that.
Yeah.
Um, if you want to continue to follow our stuff, make sure that you definitely click on the Discord and come hang out with us. We're looking. I'm looking at doing so. I have to make sure I watch how I say this because my team does some things, and then I am the cat that goes off on the tangent and takes care of random things and fun stuff like that. So I think what I'm going to start doing is on Mondays is in our Discord only kind of community where we will talk about how the thank you for the the follow Sand Kit. Thank you guys. How we are going to allow people to uh, we'll allow people to actually ask questions and see the back end of how I do things. So I think that's what we'll start doing, kind of getting people to come to the community, hang out with us, and then Monday evenings I'll pop into the Discord and kind of give a screen share and show off how I build my campaigns and stuff like that. And we'll probably have a bunch of guests in there too because we seem to keep our guests, which is great. We love our guests, and we're building an entire community with just those guys as well. So yeah, so it's one of the questions that I always get asked, and this is something that's been thrown at me for the last probably 10 years or so. When I started my campaign, when I had friends of mine starting their campaigns, what do you prep before the first session? Like, what do you come up with? How do you come up with your scenario?
Yeah.
And maybe some ideas or tips and tricks that we can give our viewers and that we can give people that are going to watch this later on to start their first campaign. Now I understand
Yeah.
we have modules and we have all those things, and don't get me wrong, they're absolutely fantastic. I'm actually running my first two modules this year. I've never ran a module before. All my stuff has been
Right.
homebrew. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to run two modules this year instead, and I'm going to run them, but I'm going to put my twist on them, the misfit twist.
Which
And
ones are they?
so I'm running Tomb of Annihilation with an entire evil party.
Okay.
Very, very unique, very interesting. We've been playing now a year in this, and they're just arriving in Omu. So I've definitely thrown some unique twists and turns, and they're already level 8. So Omu's Omu's challenge ratings are bumping up
Hmm.
pretty significantly. And then I run another group through Horde of the Dragon Queen. So two very different styles of gameplay, but and I really have been digging deep into a lot of the factions and Horde of the Dragon Queen. And if they want to ally with a specific faction, or if some players want to ally with specific factions, what they might earn as
Hmm.
rewards compared to just handing people money and magic items. There's more to it.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so when you sit down and you're like, hey, I'm finished with this campaign. If you've ever done this, because I don't know, I've I've done this many times surprisingly now. And then the next step is what's next? Like, where do I start again?
Hmm.
So how do you come up with like those? How would you do it?
So I guess the first thing to say is like for my show where I'm the players and the DM, things are a
Hmm.
bit different.
Right.
Mostly because of the medium, actually, not so much because I'm the player and the DMs, which you'd think would be an issue, but it's not. But if I'm doing like a table game,
Yeah.
um, I think there's like two schools of thought on this. There's the sandbox, and then there's like the highway, which is not necessarily a railroad, but
Right.
there's like a destination that is like set, and kind of how you get there might be different depending on what your players choose to do.
Hmm.
For me, I prefer like a sandbox. So planning is more or less a, a waste of time, or at least you get diminishing returns after, let's say, an hour of planning. So
Hmm.
I would put together maybe some list of NPC names just so that I can grab them quickly.
Right.
I might put together some um, like monster stat block encounter like index cards. I use index cards for that kind of thing. And I'll maybe make 4 or 5 of those for a session. And then maybe they get used, maybe they don't. Um, Depending again, like I kind of, my best games are the ones where all of the story or a good part of the story is driven by character choices, and
Hmm.
less than they're in a story, like they make the story. It's very emergent.
Hmm.
So for me, one of the sort of tricks that I learned that helps make that possible, because not a lot of people are really comfortable doing the seat of the pants kind of
Yeah.
GMing. But one thing that really helps is at the end of every session, you got to ask the players like, what do you intend to do next time, so that I can plan it and have some starting place. So you don't want to end on a blank canvas.
Hmm.
You want to you want to end with some kind of um, deliberate direction, and then your players, they got to kind of stick with that. If
Right.
they say, "Oh, you see a castle and there's smoke pouring out the tower," boy, that's alarming. Uh, do you want to go investigate it? And so if they say yes, then you can go and you can plan that castle. And if they
Correct.
say no, then you can figure out something else. But
Right.
you don't want to leave it as a question mark, so that because then you have to plan both.
Oh
And
yeah, no, I completely agree because that's how it's surprising that's mostly how I play my games.
uh,
Um, Now I will say, and this is some back knowledge is that's how I play my games. Surprisingly, this last year that is not how I played my stream, and I think part of that was what hindered our stream a little bit. So this year we're going to be doing a lot more um, focusing on the players to understand where they're at and where they want to go.
mhm,
And I think and something I have learned over this last year, watching very, very skilled streams and very skilled podcasts and talking to some of these people is that's almost a weekly thing for them. So like after they're done with the stream, they sit down, they talk about, hey, what did you like about this? What did you not like about it?
sure,
How does your character feel about certain things? Now I'm a little different because I run 3 different games in 3 different worlds. It is literally chaos in my brain sometimes, and I
yeah,
have to make sure I'm
sounds like
watching out
it.
which one I'm running.
Sounds
So I
like it.
run, yeah, so I run 2 paid games a weekly, the 2 modules right now, and then I run our semi homebrew. It's in a world where that's built by a company, but it's not a D&D known company. So it's called Gooey Cube. They're out of Colorado. They're a small company, but they have some amazing content. And I've written in
Mhm,
some of that content, which is kind of part of the reason why
cool.
we run that stuff. But it does give that extra challenge to people watching. If you don't know the world, you don't know the understanding of what's going on. It's hard to kind of
Sure.
tie people into that. We've really been working on trying to get that out to people. Thank you, Gummy Bear Wars. One of our moderators. We love the Gooey Cube, which yeah, no, they're great. They're a great company. I've loved working with them. Almost all of our players are either GMs for them at cons or writers for
Hmm.
them, that kind of thing. And we're getting ready to pull in other people because we want to see what the other side feels when they're actually playing in a game compared to just watching it.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, no, I really agree with the NPC cards, monster blocks. I wish I had my original co-host here, Corey, because him and I think way differently on how to prep games. He
Yeah.
is the over prepper, I am the under prepper, and then we've kind of find a way to to work together to make something that's truly an amazing opportunity.
Hmm.
Uh,
So during
Good
my
vibes.
my regular life, I'm a high school teacher, and I find like there's some
Oh my
similarities between
goodness.
the surprise. Actually,
I
so
have
so many of us do this.
I like five or six people in my like close knit D&D group that all are like, I teach during the day and then I run this, and I teach during the day and then I run this. Yeah, so
Yeah, it's
I'm actually IT
you're the
for act.
outlier. Yeah,
Was that?
you're the outlier.
Yeah, I'm the outsider. So I'm active duty military, and I do IT work all day. So
Hmm.
um, I tell people this is my way to turn the left side of my brain on and turn the right side on. Like, so this is my opportunity to do that. And it's funny because I say that, and then this show allows me to kind of combine them, because
Hmm.
I take what I learned from this and I create it to, but I also try to methodically present it to people so that they can use it in their world as well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, NPC names, big one. Anybody who's out there who's getting ready to start their character or start their games, that cheat sheet of like 40 names that you
Hmm.
never use all 40, just have it there, because when they walk into the shop, they're going to want to know who he is.
Yeah,
When they
exactly.
walk into the inn, they're going to want to know who he is. If you say there's 12 people at the inn, you better be ready to put 12 people at that inn, because some players, not all, and if you know your players, it's a little easier, but for sometimes when you don't know your players, there's going to be that player that's going to walk to every, well, who's that? Well, who's the guy in the corner? Well, who's the guy sitting here?
Mm.
Especially if you've got like a very charismatic um, character built up, because he's going to try to befriend everyone.
For sure,
And
for sure.
um, and
And
that's
actually,
not
if you're a
the,
GM that does voices, then you're in big trouble. If you got 12
yeah,
different voices that you got to make.
yeah.
I don't know about you, but I
Voice
don't
mod
have
is
12 voices in
voice
me.
mod is amazing for that. However, I will tell people, and I told my players in the group, most of the time, if I'm doing a voice, it's going to be for the main person that you're speaking to or a
Hmm.
side person. The most you are
Yeah,
going to get out of me is two. I'm not going to sit here and have a conversation with myself in 14 different voices. I am not
yeah,
those types of people.
yeah.
I have not been professionally trained to shift my voice 14 different ways, uh, and go with the flow like that. Not to mention, it's extremely hard to keep that kind of uh, environment comfortable
Oh,
for everybody, because you're going to
absolutely,
lose
absolutely.
yourself in your own mind, let alone everybody else that's watching this. So,
Yeah, yeah. And also, it can really take like if depending on the tone of your game, if you have a funny game, then whatever,
yeah,
go to town. But if you're trying to like have some serious moments, doing accents and voices can really break the magical spell, can it? Because like
yeah,
as soon as it reads as silly, you lose that whatever that is,
right,
that gravitas, that drama. You can lose that if you're not careful.
yeah. So, like I said, I've watched your stuff, but I know some of our viewers have not watched your stuff. So, what do you consider your type of game for your podcast?
So mine is try and keep it really simple. It is dark fantasy and it is quite serious.
Okay.
It's dangerous to the PCs. So the first couple of lines of every show during the introduction, I talk about how there's no plot armor and whatever the dice say happens is going to happen. I never fudge a roll or anything like that. And so character death can happen. It does happen. When it does, um, it feels important,
Yeah.
important. Like you feel a loss. Like I certainly feel a loss the same way I would as if I was like a player at a table
Mm.
and my character dies. You bond with those characters.
Right.
So definitely I feel it. And actually, the longer my characters survive, as you said, I'm on episode 61 now.
Right.
There's still some original characters that have made it this far, but actually now I'm kind of very nervous more than before about what if they die. I'm kind of in my final module, we'll say, my final. I don't want to say arc, but okay, I'll say arc. The
Yeah.
final arc of this
This
story that's
campaign.
being
Yeah.
told.
This
Yeah,
story.
they're heading to the big bad. They're going to get there in the next 15 episodes or something. This is it. This is the end run. And so now I'm kind of nervous. Like, what happens if one of my key characters, who I've been living with now for a year and a half,
Yeah,
what if they what if they die right before the finish line because it's not a movie and it's not a novel,
right.
and I don't get to like engineer a noble death or a cool sacrifice or something. Like they might just get really unlucky.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I'm curious. So, what level are you guys at this moment?
So it's a little different because I don't use 5e,
Okay.
um, and the only reason I don't use 5e, I don't have anything against it or anything. Believe it or not, I've never played it, and so
Oh,
there I have to do the backstory to really make this make sense. But I've never played 5e, and so when I started the podcast, I needed something that was extremely rules light because a podcast where I'm explaining the rules and the crunch, that would be boring. At
right.
least
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to listen to that. And so I thought, well, I'll just use basic. So I use basic, like BX
Yeah.
D&D, and the characters now are like fifth and sixth level. And but after they get to seventh, because of like the scalability
Yeah.
in the old school games, that's about the career. That's about it. So
Right.
seventh level,
Yeah.
they're done. They're done.
Well, I'm glad you say that because it's something I tell my players all the time is there are certain milestones in a character's life where
Mhm.
I'll go to that character. So like right now, like I said, we're at eighth right now. Now I do know that my party that's playing through Tomb of Annihilation, their goal is to get the soulmonger and find a way to utilize it for their own power. So they're trying to go the heavy, big bad guy moments.
Yeah.
Uh, but I always tell people, I was like, once you get past level 8 to 10, you have
Hmm.
to start asking your character, and you have to start thinking about it in your own mind: is this character really going to get up tomorrow morning and go risk his life for what's happening next?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, then we might need to have a different conversation of either bringing in a new character or letting this party kind of not dissolve, but letting them go on their way and telling their story in other ways rather than doing it through a D&D campaign. Um,
Absolutely. We were talking about some GM tips. I think that it kind of does fall on the GM to provide a reason for the characters to either be pushed forward
mm-hmm,
or pulled towards something, or both if you can do it, or if you
right,
prefer the like stick carrot metaphor. But I think that one of the things that a DM can do, a good one, is that they provide a reason for the characters to be doing something.
right,
Otherwise, any sane character would say like, well, I've got like a whole chest full of gold here. Why wouldn't I just retire? Why would I
right.
continue
Yeah,
to risk my life for no reason?
yeah. Now I will say for bigger campaigns that you've been playing for as long as you have, normally you find ways to connect your GM or you connect your players with NPCs or with
Mm.
moments in time where they have you can come back to those.
Yeah.
So if they've met maybe the high elder of this organization, well now he's going to come to you and be like, "Hey, this is a problem. We need help."
Right.
And you're trying to pull those emotional strings to say, "Hey, this is your mission now. It's not just you want to risk your life, but now you're risking your life for something bigger." Um,
Yes. Yeah.
and like I said, I love those thoughts, but there are times where we get to certain levels, and I'm like, hey guys, you solved the problem. I can present more to you if that's the way you want to go, but I want you guys to know that the closer we get to higher levels, the easier it is for you to die. So there is that too, because once you start getting into levels 9, 10, 11, you start throwing especially if you're a wizard or you're running up against wizards.
Hmm.
There's some nasty spells out there. If you roll
Yeah.
the wrong button, it's gonna hurt. Uh, so yeah, um,
Those BX characters, they start out with like 3 hit points.
yeah, exactly. So you, you know the rat hit gets a little extra gnaw, and now you've got disease and you're in trouble. So you ain't going very far at that point. Uh, yeah. So NPC names, monster index cards, So these are all things you prep per session, right?
Those are the things that like I'll do that usually. Okay, for like the name card, you do
Mm-hmm.
that once. You just go
Yeah.
on to your Don John or whatever
Yeah.
favorite generator is, and you just click through it until you find 20 good ones that
You
speak to you and
like.
sound cool. Yeah, and then you just write them all down on the index card, and then you just always have that at
Yeah.
hand so that when oh, you've met a traveler on the roadside, and they, flag you down. Oh, can you help us? Okay, yeah. And then what's their name? And then you don't know. So this solves that problem of
Right.
like having to come up with cool stuff
Yeah.
off
Right off the
off the
bat.
dome all the time. Yeah, exactly.
I would
So yeah.
suggest for a lot of people, unless you know very closely your world and your understanding of the world, put a little bit more than just a name down. So maybe put their race,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to put occupation because that can change no matter where you need them to play. But at least if you have a
Yep.
race and maybe a little bit of a description, then you can give those descriptors very quickly with your character, and then because no matter what, if he's a elf or he's a tiefling, he's still going to be the baker or he's still going to be the shopkeeper,
Yeah.
and he
Sure.
still might dress the exact same way depending on what's going on. Thank you for the follow, Rico. Uh, got a
Hey
chance to
Rico, cheers
play
to
with
you. I think
him.
it's time for me to crack open this beverage. So this one's for Rico.
There we go.
Okay.
Talk about energy. I'm telling you. I got a chance to play with Rico last night on last game boards, and that man's energy level is on par with Brandon Lee Mulligan. I've never seen somebody with so much energy. It was insanity, but I loved
Was
playing with it. It was such a fantastic time. Uh, and yeah, hi Remy. So, chat, do you guys have any questions? Have you guys ever started a campaign or sat there at the beginning and was like, "Oh God, I have to start a campaign. What do I do?" Because I know a lot of us will go to inspirations like movies, games, TV. Thanks, buddy. And we'll take those as our inspiring moments. Or you go into your your drive-through RPG and you grab the first module you see and you're like, hey, this is what I'm running it for. We'll see where this goes.
hmm
Because the one thing I always tell people when I start campaigns is that's the only time you have control of the story at the beginning. And
Yeah.
that's also how the only time you have control of the story each session because you're going to set the scene for that beginning moments and then after that the players are going to do what the players do. Um,
hmm
and we had an experiment last night which is interesting because it kind of definitely plays to what we're talking about. We random generated everything. It was absolute chaos, but it was a great time to come up with just a story. So we used things like Nord Games, Dangerous Destinations, which they just finished their Kickstarter. We used NPC cards
Yep.
that we could generate real quick with. All of our characters were generated, so we didn't even get our characters until the show started, which was a
Nice.
little complicated, but it was great. I had a fun time. I got to play my first Eric Roca, which was interesting. So um, and yeah, it was a good time. And those things are great inspirations. I don't ever tell people to roll on tables during a game. I think it
hmm
really takes down the excitement level of playing. But if you're having problems or you want to add something to your game, go grab those random tables, roll on them, and then take a moment and think about what you rolled, and you might come up with something extremely useful.
Definitely. Sometimes those tables can force you to be creative in a way that's not your default. And so you get it pulls things out of you that are
Yeah.
better than what you would have just gone to, uh,
Mm-hmm.
on the spur of the moment.
Yeah.
If I don't know if you're familiar with Mythic. Do you know that engine,
I
Mythic?
think I'm not.
Or maybe you know Ironsworn. It's kind of a better known Mythic like. Anyway, uh,
I haven't heard
Mythic
either, but
is
I'm going to
I'm,
do my research after this. So
Mythic. I'll give you the short pitch. Mythic is brilliant, by the way, and I think it's the first. And so I want to give credit to Tana Pigeon, who made it. For I believe she came up with this herself, and then she's been copied many many times. But basically, it's a GM emulator.
Oh
So
wow.
it's meant for solo players or even a group of players that all want to play, and then you can you can emulate a GM. And the way it works, to really oversimplify, but the sort of the core mechanic is you roll on a pair of tables, and one of them is, uh, I think it's adjective table and noun table. So you'd roll, your percentile, and you look on the table for adjective, you're like tyrannical, and then you roll for the other table. Okay, I got a 72. Priest, tyrannical priest, and then you have to make sense of that in
Right.
whatever the context of
Of
your
what you're looking
current
for.
situation. Yeah. So like, let's say somebody says, like you meet somebody on the roadside, and they're like, oh, we've just been attacked. Oh my goodness, who attacked you? Well, I don't know. Let's consult the oracle. And then you roll a tyrannical priest, and you're like, now the story has gone in a very specific direction that I
Right.
probably wouldn't have thought of on my own. But anyway,
Yeah.
that mechanic is so creatively inspiring.
Yeah, I got a new
I,
book for Christmas like that. It's this book right here.
which one is that?
It's
Your green screen
the
at Random
yeah
Encounters? Yeah.
yeah. I gotta like put it next to my body in order to see it. Yeah, no, it's the Random Encounters. There's another one out there called the Random NPCs, and I'm probably gonna pick that one up too because I really like it. Uh,
Is that one
and
Matt David's?
let me see. It is Jeff Ashworth.
Jeff Ath. Okay, I don't know him.
I don't either. Now I'm trying to look to see if there's other authors. Now I do know that the foreword was done by Michael Shea, so we all
Hmm.
know who Michael Shea is. So if you don't know who Michael Shea is, then as a game master, you should definitely at least check him out.
You should give
And
him your money. Yeah.
yeah, I got his book for Christmas too. So that was I've had it for PDF for about 3 years now. But my wife was like, hey, you talk about this thing, and I would rather you be downstairs hanging out with me and reading than you sitting in your computer room reading all the time. So she got me a couple books so that when we're doing things, I can go downstairs and read rather than me sitting up here
Yeah. Yeah.
doing my
Yeah.
thing. Because I do a lot of game mastering and a lot of writing and building and all sorts of craziness.
Hmm.
And this is my shout out to people. If you do anything social media wise and want to help out with this stream, give me a message because that's my worst thing is exposure and content creation. So if you want to help me out with that, that would be epic. Yeah, and of course you would then help out with the stream completely. But yeah, no, we've tried to, like I said, I've tried to do multiple things this year. My goal is to actually take a lot of these contents that we're doing here, breaking them into small PDFs where people can actually go out and grab them and
Hmm.
learn. Because who better to learn from than the people who are doing this every single day? Like I said, for you, it's interesting because you do it all. You play the game, you, and then you dissect the game and you rebuild it into this solo drama, which I was like, that's very, very unique. How you
It's
guys
it's
do
a
that?
strange thing, and I still introduce it as like an experiment in fiction. It's been going
Yeah,
on for a while. I guess I'm going to say it works.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a strange process because most people game at a table with a bunch of people, and really it was the pandemic that forced me to do it this way, especially when everything was on complete lockdown. I'm in Toronto, so I guess things are a little bit maybe stricter up here. Anyway, we were forced to
Another
kind of.
another no offense to you, another Canadian? Oh my goodness, there's so many of you in the
You
D&D
know,
world.
winter is here.
Yeah,
Actually, it's
winter
not
is
coming.
here. Winter came threw itself at us and then left, and it's on its way back. That seems to be what's happening here.
I dream of living in the southern states. I dream of it, but
Uh,
that's not
yeah.
in the cards. But yeah, so the way that I play a game is I'll sit at my computer and I'll type. as if I was typing a movie script or something like that.
Okay.
Describe what is seen, describe what people say. I tend to do quite a bit of dialogue because it's an audio medium, and that's just a bit more interesting than
Right.
loads of sort of description box type stuff. So I try
Yeah.
and do a lot of talking, um, which was daunting at first when I started because I'm not a voice actor. I'm not
Right.
an actor at all, and I didn't really know how to. Anyway, I sort of learned by doing.
60,
And
61 episodes. You've definitely gotten your
I,
feet wet
I'm
on this.
comfortable with it now, but boy, it
Oh,
felt very sort of imposter
I
syndromey at first.
completely agree. Like I said, IT guy, but not a show face. This is my first time ever on like a social media platform where I was being seen weekly,
Yeah.
and then on top of it, we had to learn all the tech behind this. Thankfully, we have a wonderful team that came kind of behind me on this, and we put our heads together and put this thing together. All the voices I use love new NPCs. Yeah. Um, my voices, I've got my trope voices. I'll
Mhm.
break out a random Irish accent or a
Yeah.
Arabian accent. But other than that, it's very difficult unless I'm just changing very minor tones or shifts in my voice in order to give a bit of a difference. And like I said, not trained voice actor, not trained actor. I'm a military IT guy. That's what I do. I work for with zeros and ones all day long. So,
Right.
um, but I feel like we've come a far way from where we started. Now I'll tell you, the audio was atrocious. The first like 10 to 15 episodes we had, audio was
Yeah.
atrocious.
Yeah.
So if you're watching those, please know that this was the first year we've ever done anything like this. There are tech issues. Um,
This is the thing, right? Because there's a learning curve for all of us content creators.
yeah,
So all of us start at cringe. Let's just call it what
yeah,
it is. We all start at cringe, but the problem is that when people come and check out your show for the first time, especially if it's a serial like mine,
yeah,
um, it's they start at the beginning. And
yeah,
so I know that when people hear my my show's name out there, somebody recommends it or they see a review or
yeah.
whatever, and they're like, okay, I've heard this name 3 times. I'm going to go check it out. And
Right,
then they go and they hear episode 0. It's not it's not bad.
right,
It's from my perspective now because I've grown so much as
right.
in all facets of this. So for me, it feels like, oh, they're going to walk in my front door and it is a mess. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, I know. The back room's clean as heck now, but the front
I
room
know
is still rushed.
exactly. The downstairs is finished. It looks really good, but they have to get there first.
Yeah. And we've talked about that even on our stream of like, do we restart? Like, is it time to, reset the project?
Yeah,
Because we've learned so much. But I really don't want to because we've been telling the same story. We're at 31 episodes here. Um,
I think that you should leave it. And like, I think the people that create it, we we see all the warts,
yeah,
but most people they don't care like we do. Like
yeah,
we what is like, oh my god, every time I say an S, it whistles like it's shrill and it makes my ear bleed. Nobody, most people aren't. I mean, unless it's truly truly terrible, most
yeah.
people don't. They're not as critical as we are of our own stuff.
Oh yeah. And we've had people, and I do know that we've talked to a lot of players or a lot of people who've watched our shows from the beginning on, and we've seen they've been our backbone, like of telling us, hey, your stuff has dramatically improved throughout the
Hmm.
months, and it makes us feel good because, like I said, we try to make sure that we're putting a new foot forward every week,
Yeah.
something different, something new, something's better. Um, it took me 6 weeks to learn how to do how to do our intros. Like I was like,
Hmm.
these next 6 weeks, I'm learning how to do After Effect and Premiere. I've never touched video editing, none of that.
And it looks
Um,
great. It looks really
and
good.
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
and our show on Sundays, it took me probably 2 weeks just to do that intro alone, which was a daunting task.
Hmm.
But we see what it does now, and it's amazing where we've come from. But I think that's kind of the cool thing about this show today is that's kind of what we're talking about, like the turning of the page. So now we're getting ready to launch this. We're getting ready to push this thing forward.
Hmm.
And one thing I want to tell people is kind of that same mentality is don't be scared to do it. Just go for it. One of the things that we always
Yeah.
project to people is to make sure that you're going to feel off. You're going to feel nervous. You're going to feel not prepared. That's okay.
Hmm.
And if you feel that way, it means you're doing something right. It means you didn't sit there and waste hundreds and hundreds of hours to prep for a game that you're going to play for 3 to 4 hours. And within the first 30 minutes, most likely 90% of it is going to have to be moved to the side or waited for on in another session. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I'm like, if there's people like watching this and they have an idea, and they're like, maybe I should make this thing. By all means, like go and make it. But
yeah,
I would say with this one caveat, make it and understand that it's probably like a labor of love. You make it because you love the game, or you love this story idea. Um, I know that some people kind of get into podcasting and streaming thinking like, I can't wait for the money to roll in. And I think that might not be a great
it's
expectation
not a
to
good.
have
Yeah,
for what we're doing.
it's
Because
rough.
typically it's like most hobbies in that it costs us a little bit,
Yeah,
right? It doesn't bring in a ton of revenue.
no,
That's
it,
okay though. I got to say, like I'll spend a couple $100 a year on hosting.
yeah,
Um, Less, it's like 150 Canadian, which is like $5 US, right? And that is the best $5 US I've ever spent because like doing my show has kept me so like occupied and
right.
involved and like having like that creative um, challenge that's
Mm-hmm.
constant and every day. It's given me something to think about during like a pretty crappy last couple of years. And boy, it's the best thing I've done in the last couple of years. So if your watchers are thinking, hey, maybe I should do this, yeah, do it.
Yeah,
Make your art and shoot your shot.
yeah. No, I completely agree. And it's funny because COVID, it's so weird. We all thought that this was going to be a huge downfall for a lot of people, but a lot of people it
Uh-huh.
kind of kicked them in the butt
Yeah,
to go out and do something they love to do because you can't
yeah,
do anything else. You're stuck in the house.
that's
You
right.
don't do anything.
That's right.
It's how I launched my professional gaming career. It's how I launched the stream. It's how I launched writing. You find those things that you really love to do, and if you can do it in your own home, then you have a lot of time to do it. Like,
Mhm.
don't take that for granted that you don't have that. This was a yeah, it was a rough year for a lot of people, and we hope that this next year is starting to slowly get back to normal a little bit, even though
We
we're
hope so.
changing again.
Mm.
And if it has affected you in any way, mentally, physically, two things. One, please be safe, and we're all thinking about you. And two, if you need anything, reach out to the stream. I will sit and I will talk to anybody who's having those downfalls or having those questions. I will sit down and I will talk to you personally. I have no problem with it. As a military member, I see this way too often where people go into those depressions and those types of things,
Yeah, of
and
course.
it it gets rough. So from the bottom of my heart, personally, I will make time for you to sit down and talk with you if you are in those types of conditions, because we need those people out there. So yeah, that was a little darker than I expected to go with that to right now, but it's an important thing that has to be said. So yeah, chat. Do you guys have any questions on, or has anybody ever thought about being a game master? Is scared to be a game master? Has any questions about game mastering, about podcasting? Um, this is where you guys have that opportunity to talk, and while we sit here and jab about D&D. Uh, One thing I forgot to ask you is what I ask all my guests. So,
Yeah.
how long have you been playing? When did you start, and or why did you start rather? And then when did you decide I'm gonna go from playing to being a game master, or was it instant?
I have two gaming lives. So I'm in my 40s now, and I grew up during like the satanic panic of the 80s,
Yeah,
which, by the way, was legit real. Like that was
yeah,
it was if you were a gamer,
hmm
it was like so dorky that even dorks wouldn't talk to you. So most of us were kind of closet
oh
gamers.
yeah,
Yeah. Uh, and so in high school, really the stigma got too much for me, and I was trying to be like in a rock band and stuff like that, and I couldn't reconcile the two things. You can't be a cool rock band guy and be a D&D dork. It doesn't
yeah,
work. It's like crossing the streams. Bad
yeah.
news.
Until you
And
start
so
hearing, until you start hearing that those same band people that
I
are
know,
now
right? Of
were
course,
playing back then, you just didn't
of
know it.
course, of course. But so I quit when I was about, no, I don't know, 18 years old. I quit so that I could, have a social life.
Yeah,
And I gave it up completely. And I just got my D&D fix through Lord of the Rings, and then later on Game of Thrones, and of
hmm
course PC games one after another,
oh
and
yeah,
all those novels like the all the Drizzt novels,
yep,
Drizzt,
Dritz,
which
yep,
uh, honestly I don't think they're really really good, but anyway they scratch the itch, so I read them all.
yeah,
Uh, I read everything I get my hands on, and but I never thought that I would come back to the table. Eventually, I kind of discovered the world of podcasts. I found the Adventure Zone, which is a lot of people's entry point into actual plays, and for good reason because it's
yeah.
incredible.
It is incredible.
And even though like comedy isn't my very favorite thing, I love that, and I thought, oh wow, this is like they've raised the bar so high in
Oh
terms
yeah,
of like drama, complexity of story, and it it was just constantly jaw on the floor when I was listening to that. So I started looking for more, but I started thinking maybe I could find something that's not comedy,
mm,
because that's what I really wanted. I wanted that Lord of the Rings experience, that Game of Thrones experience in podcast form. That was just for my commute, whatever.
right.
And so I started looking and looking and looking and looking and looking, and I would just randomly download 12 AP actual play podcasts at a time, and I would listen to like the first 5 minutes of each one, and but one after another for me it was like delete, delete, delete,
Mm,
delete, delete, because every one of them was like zany gonzo comedy, like, oh, let's introduce our characters. Luckily, almost every podcast that doesn't actual play, they introduce their characters right away, and you can tell, if there's the one guy who's kind of smugly, he's waiting to talk the whole time, waiting for his turn, and then finally his turn comes. He says, "Well, my character is a one-legged Kenku pirate with a monocle." As soon as I heard that, that's it. I'm out. Delete. So eventually, I couldn't find the thing that I wanted to hear, and so I made it. That's kind of how I got into it.
there you go. Look at that, guys.
I was
If
like,
you,
there's got to be someone else out there besides me
yeah,
who doesn't want a zany comedy. I started, actually, I was really hung up on it. At first, I was like, you know, if you walked into, do you remember old Blockbuster video stores?
mm-hmm.
If you walked into a Blockbuster video store and it was like every shelf
Was
was
comedy.
zany comedy, you'd be like, what the hell? What's going on here? But the podcast world is very much like that.
Yeah,
Everything's comedy, and there was almost nothing that was like trying to play a quote unquote serious game, and I use that
I got
term.
really lucky because there was this was before I had known anything about Critical Role, anything I'd known
Hmm.
about Adventure Zone, all those. So a Pathfinder
I gotta tell
podcast,
you, I gotta tell you a story in a minute. Please go
yeah.
ahead.
So a Pathfinder podcast called Critical Hit was
Okay.
out in like the late '90s, early 2000s. So they were the like known, and they were gritty. It was like they played real characters and they had
Okay.
real moments, and I really enjoyed them, and I watched them for years. But well, listened to them for years, and then I felt I kind of fell off on it uh, due to going off after college, that kind of thing, and
Hmm.
starting
Hmm.
my own life, and just got busy.
Yeah.
But um, I know from if I'm not mistaken, they're still doing stuff. So they're almost
Wow.
10 years in on this thing. It's incredible.
I have to check that out because I don't
Yeah,
know how I missed it.
yeah. Critical Hit is a and they I don't know if they're still around or not, but I thought my buddy told me because he's been listening to him since I was listening to him, and he never
Hmm.
stopped. So he's like, bro, they're way into this weird world now because they've shifted through planes, and
Yeah.
I was like, can't catch up now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
over the world.
I feel that way
Um,
about Glass Cannon. I think they're on
yeah,
200, 200 and something
yeah,
episodes, and I'm way back on episode 70, and they're prolific. Those guys are like popping out one a week.
yeah.
There's like
No,
I can't keep up with it. But it's very
um,
good. I mean, it's really really good. I
yeah.
like it very much.
I go on their stream every once in a while. I've talked to a couple of the guys there. Um, real quick after, and then I'm gonna get to your question, Gummy Bear. One second. Is there's another one out there for you specifically because you like this type of. Have you ever heard of the Broken Quill?
No,
Okay, another big one. They're very
I'm writing it down.
dramatic and serious. So I think it would be a good one for you. My buddy
Oh,
introduced it to me. I'm okay with it. It's almost too much for me because it's like there's
yeah,
no comedy from what I've noticed, like none. It's very serious, very dramatic.
that's what I'm all about.
So, like I said, it might be something for you. Okay, so question for both of us: do you get upset or do you like it when your players go off the rails and completely change the story and encounters that you had planned? Also, how do you handle those changes on the spot without stumbling?
Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll let you go first on this one.
All right. I think so. That's controllable to some extent, right? So if you're picking up a session in a dungeon and there's only, you know, two or three ways to go, then the players are going to be limited and they can't do too much. Otherwise, I would encourage it. And because of my style of DMing, it is very much emergent, procedural, kind of sandboxy kind of stuff. So that is my happy place. Um, but I think the one exception I would take is if I felt like a player was doing it just to screw with me, like
Mm,
they knew that I made this thing. Maybe at the end of the last session, we'd agreed that we're going to do whatever, whatever. And then sort of if it feels like a deliberate, oh, we've changed our mind now. We're not going to go to the castle with smoke pouring out the tower. We're going to go back to town and do something else. And there I am with my 3 sheets of notes. Again, I never over prepare anything because it's quite often best laid plans and all that, right? Um, but I think that's pretty rare. Like I don't typically have like an antagonistic player, but I mean it does happen, especially if you're on roll 20 and it's a bunch of randos.
yep. Yeah, so I kind of am in the same boat. I do like to ask my players early or at the end of a session, or maybe right before the end of a session. Like we're getting ready to go to the big scene at the end of the session, and we're going to drop the cliffhanger. The question is then is like, where do you guys want to go next? Or maybe we're done with the mission that you guys are completing. You're heading back to town. You're sitting in the inn. You're going over all these different things that you've been learning throughout the last 6 or 7 sessions. And then the next question is going to be, well, where are we going next? Um, those things, the way I play a lot of my games are very episodic. So they follow that same pattern every episode.
Mm-hmm.
And you can follow that. When a player goes off the rails, I usually will do one of two things. One, I'll just let it happen because there are two different things you can do with that. One, you can do is what they call the illusion of choice. So if you don't have maps in front of
Mm-hmm.
people, you have control, no matter if you think you do or not. Where you can, so we're going in the forest, right? Yep. You've got a choice of left and right. No matter which direction you go, you're going to where I need you to get to.
Right, it's the quantum ogre, right?
Right, exactly. And it's not for everything, so don't think that I'm always pigeonholing my players to go a
Right,
specific way. But
of
if you're
course.
also on a story, it's gonna break the story if they go some direction and they hit a dead end or they hit this random thing that doesn't make any sense to the story. So playing that way makes more sense. Um, Handling it, however, is very usually, or I would encourage people to do this, is allow people to play their characters the way they would play their characters.
Hmm.
If you're in an inn, and you present a bunch of people there. You might have an NPC there, and this happened in our stream, where one of our characters was like, I did not like how he was talking to this person. I didn't think it was right. And
Hmm.
all of a sudden, we've got a bar brawl because the dude just punched him in the nose.
Sure.
Why? Because of his character. And I kind of keep those things in the back of my mind, especially when they happen on games, to say, okay, these are trigger moments that make it so that these characters make sense. And if it presents itself again, I make sure that I specifically explain those things out a little more in detail so that the players can see those moments that if they want to react to them, they can.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know if that's helping you, Gummy Bear, or not. But yeah, no, I completely allow my players to go off the rails to a point. If we've been running this story that's been going this direction, and you go, stop, I want to go to this random continent or this random country, do you really? Like, why? Why is your character doing this?
Yeah, I think I
Um,
think I think what it comes down to is like um, it's not like the DM story and the characters are in it, and it's not even the character story and the DM is just a physics engine or whatever. It really is a team effort, and I think as long as that spirit of wanting to make it good for everybody
right,
is there, you kind of can't go wrong. Um, and so, like I said before, like only if somebody's deliberately trying to torpedo the game, uh,
right,
I'll go with whatever because I trust the players and hopefully they trust me. And we're kind of all on the same board trying to make something that's exciting and compelling and rich and all that stuff. And so, like as long as that's people's motivation, I think you kind of can't go too wrong.
right. Yeah, no, those, like I said, and definitely let your players do this, but only if they're doing it because their character's going to do it. If they're trying to be mean, you might want to have that secondary conversation off table of like, hey, like what was the point of that? What was the reasoning behind it? And don't ever think that you can't have those conversations. A lot of people will actually think better of you as a game master if you have those types of conversations where you're very open with them on the situation. Um, I think a lot of times I hear it a lot when game masters, especially when game masters start getting burned out. It's because they're not working with their players.
Hmm.
Because I've never been burned out of a game where I'm having fun every session with my players. I've never
Yeah.
been burned out of a game like that. It's when I'm grueling and trying to find new things for the players to figure out and things to drive. That's when I start having those stressful moments where you're like, okay, what do I give the player now? What is the point of this right now? And your players should be also having those same moments of like, how do I improve my character? How what is my motivation as a character? How do I make that more known or prevalent and those types of things? Because like I said, it's more of a story that you're telling together, and especially with you because you do it all yourself, which I think is incredible. Um, so yeah, no, I'm really uh, I think that's probably my best motive on that would be to allow your players to do fun, wacky, crazy things that you might have caught you off guard. Um, Also, challenge your players sometimes. Don't just let them do it. I love when players want to do really off the wall things and you give them a challenge to actually, like, roll the die. Let's see if it works.
Hmm.
And if it works, it kind of makes it even feel more exciting than if it doesn't, because then you're like, oh no, I even put a challenge to this and it still is going off. A great example of that, and when we talk about zany and crazy, my Tomb of Annihilation game, uh, at level 3, they tamed a CR8 T Rex with 6 challenges I put them through to get
Hmm.
this thing. So the druid was doing or animal handling checks and running these extra spells to throw at him. The the wizard was like all these things they worked together to do to try to get it, and every time I gave them a check, they succeeded.
Hmm.
So at the end of that session, I was like, yeah, as long as you keep this T Rex fed and happy, he will work with you. The first day you forget to feed him, you might be lunch. And then that's how we've played the game. Now I only let him keep that character or that T Rex for about 3 sessions before they tried to. They infiltrated an area called Nangalore, which, if you've ever played Tomb of Annihilation, has a really nasty Medusa there, who's kind of a quest giver and also a very strong challenge. Well, she made sure that that T Rex didn't move anymore, so it's now her personal statue that she holds on to, and now the players are working for her. So
That worked out. You know, I think everybody's been in a game where like there's a character that wants to play an assassin or some kind of lone wolf, right?
yeah,
And or maybe they're going to steal from the other party members. And I think everybody at some point in their gaming life what goes through that and wants to play that and explore that because it's kind of edge lord coolish
yeah,
whatever. But now that I'm older and wiser, I strongly discourage or flat out refuse to like allow that kind of thing because
right.
it's a game breaker.
It is. Like I said, you have to be.
Got to be a team.
You
Got
got
to
to
be
be
a
a team
team.
player.
Mm.
Do you guys have any other questions? We're just over an hour, which is normally what our show will go to, unless we've got questions or lots of activity. Um,
Do you want to play D&D Pictionary?
we can play. I don't have anything to do it with. I literally have no drawing tools around me right now. I do all my stuff online. Um, what would
That's okay,
be?
because I do.
Oh, there we
Now,
go.
I've never done this before, and I don't know if it's going to work.
Sure, let's try it.
But I figure we should try it because if nothing else, I'm pretty sure that this is a Twitch first.
There we go. We'll do D&D Pictionary. You guys want to do D&D Pictionary? Give me a shout out in comments. Let's do D&D Pictionary. What do you guys think? This also checks to make sure if our chat's active.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Somebody said yes. Thank you for putting us out of our misery. I think
Sorry.
the way this is going to work is going to be so, Gummy Bear, you're going to give me the password, and then James, you can't read the chat.
Okay.
You can only look at me, and I'm going
Okay.
to draw whatever Gummy Bear tells me to draw. It's got to be D&D related,
All right. Hold on.
and
Let
if
me
it's
let
old
me.
school, there's a better chance that I'm going to know what it is.
There we go. Let me pull this. Is this going to change anything? Let me see. All
All
right.
right,
So
Gummy Bear, you think about what I'm going to be drawing. Could
okay.
be a spell, could be a monster, could be something famous. Again, if it's fifth
Okay.
edition, you might not know what it is. Okay, you got it. Okay, don't look at the chat. Did
I'm
you
not.
look?
Nope.
Okay,
I've got the
not
Zoom.
spoiled.
So I covered everything up with Zoom. So all I can see
Perfect,
right now is me and you.
perfecto. I'm putting a 1 minute timer on for
Oh
myself,
gosh.
and here I
Okay.
go. Okay. Oh boy, now I got to draw it this way. Um,
I can't get your hands away on everything. Okay. I see a person. Is it? Is it a troll?
oh yes, it is a troll. It is a troll.
Ooh, there we go. Got it.
Thank you, Gummy Bear.
Thank you.
Gummy
That was
Bear,
awesome.
you win a date with the troll.
Ooh, there you go. Nice. Yeah. Um, but yeah, guys, definitely go out and check out their stuff. Let me go out and actually let me buzz over on my little window here. Oh, thing decided to minimize, which means I disappeared. Let's see here. Let me go over to the Podbean. Oh wait, no, I have it right here. Check that out, guys. It's not like it's
Gummy
like a.
Bear, I don't know how you did that, but or James, I don't know how you got
I saw a nose. I saw it looked like a witch, and after we had talked about the witch, I was like,
that. Uh-huh.
"That's a troll."
It's a beautiful troll. Thank you, Gummy
Beautiful
Bear.
troll.
Appreciate that. Appreciate
Yeah,
that.
she is a wonderful admin of ours. We love her. She takes care of us. So hopefully we clip that. Let me clip that. See if that'll work. Work. See if it works. Might not work today. There we go. Got it. So clip that little moment. So you've got the Pictionary troll. So got that one. But yeah, no, like I said, this has been a fun little talk.
Yeah,
I hope the channel has had some good conversations about it, and I hope this definitely pushes you to try to do something new this year, because this is a good time to start doing that. And remember that the first couple episodes or couple sessions of whatever you're doing are gonna be rough. Just how it
that's okay
works.
though.
It's
That's
okay
okay.
though. It's how you learn. Um,
Those are the badges of honor. Those scars are your badges of
yeah,
honor.
well, that's what pushes people from just doing it for fun and then doing it to start actually becoming something.
Yeah.
Because you got to go through those bumps and bruises. Uh, so yeah. Do you have anything for me or any questions? Anything I can answer for you or like I
Is that
said
for me or for the chat? No, I'm good.
for you? Or that could be for the chat too. Chat, do you guys have any other questions for our Tale of the Manticore or myself? And I did not, if I did, I got your name, but I don't think I got your name so far. I literally talked to probably 16 different creators like weekly right now. It's
Oh,
insane.
I'm John. I don't.
John,
Did
that's
I
right,
did I
John.
even
Maybe I
tell you
did.
my name?
I don't remember if you told me your name or not.
Maybe I
And if
did.
I did, then I lost it in the menagerie of all these different people that I talked to. I try to, after like 3 or 4 different times I've talked to him, I finally start to remember that. Where do we find Tale of Manticore? I put that in the chat.
So you can find it on any
Yeah, there we go.
podcast.
Say it again.
So it's going to be on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and
There you go.
Spotify, and all of them. All
Yeah,
of them.
I have it on Pod. I have the link for Podbean in our chat room, so you can grab that when you need to. But the other ones, yeah.
And
Any
thank you for asking. Please
cool.
please check it out. Maybe it'll be your thing. I hope it
Yeah,
is.
I'm going to listen to it as soon as I catch up on like 3 others that I'm listening to right now, because that's the danger for me is I get into one and then I want to listen to the end and then I can't
Yeah. Well,
catch up
here's one
with
good thing
everybody
is that
else.
I make my episodes short, so they're all like
Yeah.
30 minutes,
Oh,
and
nice.
that's by design because like you, I want to listen to them all, but there's only so many hours in a day, and if you find one that you like and it happens to be like 2 hours of content a week,
Yeah. Or
you're
Critical
not going to be
Role,
listening. Oh, I can't even.
4 hours of content every week.
Oh, let me end off on this story that I almost forgot to mention. So
Sure.
I said that I had a story about my very cringe beginnings, and sort of like, do we go back and fix what we made early on? I did actually make one change to my episode 0, my very first episode. Um, First of all, I did remaster like the first 4 so that they sound better, but that's nothing. I actually went
I
in
need to do that.
with my little scalpel and I cut out something from my episode 0 because when I started, as I mentioned, I'd been away from the game, away from the table, never played 5e, still never
Right.
played 5e, and so I wasn't aware of the RPG culture at all at all. I hadn't heard of anything. Critical Role. I'd heard of Critical Role. I'd heard of Matt Mercer, but I'd never watched it or anything.
Right.
Anyway, so in my very first episode, I'm kind of talking about what I'm trying to make here, and I sort of define it by what it's not. And I say, it's not going to be a tiefling samurai with a pet poodle named Murphy. All these things
Yeah.
that kind of bug me. I said it's not going to be that, and then I very like specifically said there's going to be no like barbarian named Grog. Nobody named Grog, no Grogs. And I didn't realize that I was throwing huge shade at this like famous celebrity D&D guy.
Yeah.
I just legit thought that that was the worst name you could come up with. I still think that, but I went in and I took it out because I wasn't deliberately trying to like hate on
Yeah.
Critical Role, but I absolutely was hating on Critical Role by accident. So
That's
I went in there
crazy.
and I chopped it out.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, no, I
How to make friends in business, right?
yeah, I mean definitely. Let's see here. Yeah, guys. So if not, we're gonna have last call, which we do every week. So of course, make sure that you guys check him out. I'm gonna post his link one more time. Tale of the Manicore. Wonderful time having you here tonight. Um, I'm going to raise my glass to you because that's what I do. And
Cheers.
cheers. And For everybody, thank you for coming. If you're watching this later on, please make sure that you give us a follow. And if you can, spare a subscription. It helps keep this thing running. And everything that we've earned from this goes right back into these wonderful shows that we try to put up. We put on 3 shows weekly. We put one on Tuesday, which is a random tabletop role playing game ran by our wonderful co host, old co host Corey. This show, which is a wonderful talk show where we bring guests on every week to play D&D, and then come hang out with us on Sunday as we restart the Affordables, our live play game show, or our live play game in the world of Xayathe. So I hope to see you guys all there on Sunday, and until then, the tavern is closed.